There is a famous quote by Oscar Wilde. That quote says, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Well, in times past, and even in times of today, there are some people that would much rather be someone else besides themselves. Well, hello, howdy, and how do you do? I am your Q'dash Wisdom Simone, and this is my Candid Wisdom. I recently decided to have a Netflix and chill kind of day, and in that endeavor, I came across a movie called Passing. For whatever reason, that movie kind of stuck with me, and in shuffling through the things that I'd like to talk to you all about, I guess that became a thing. It's not something that I can say I think about very often, like the whole concept and idea of passing, being that I myself am not a fair skinned, melanated individual. I am definitely chocolate, despite some disputes of that. It would be indisputable that I myself would not be able to pass as a Caucasian unless the culprit, the person I was trying to deceive, was just outright blind. But even in that, I don't think I would be able to cloak my melanated heritage. I wouldn't be able to do that. But in this film, the starring roles, or the two dominant roles, were Tessa Thompson, who played a character named Renee, and a young lady named Ruth Negger, and she played a character named Claire. The movie starts off with Irene, known as Rainey. She's sitting in this hotel, and the whole movie is filmed in black and white, which I think is kind of cool. It gives it like this, I don't know, there's something about black and white or grayscale film movies that just feel like extra intimate. Like all of the pizzazz, or dare I say the trick of the eye. And I say trick of the eye because certain colors invoke certain feelings. For instance, a while back, Walmart revamped and it made all of their walls blue. And supposedly blue has a calming nature. So you run up in Walmart and you wonder why you can't get out. It's because the walls are blue. But for me, when it comes to film, Sin City also did this, and I'm sure there's another movie, but they film in like this grayscale or this black and white, and it gives it like this gritty appeal, which in this movie it wasn't necessarily gritty, because although it wasn't black and white, it was very, very bright. And that brightness gave Tessa and Ruth, or as you would know in the movie, Rainey and Claire, extremely fair complexion skin. Both of them are fairly light. Around my way, I don't think they would be red. For melanated people, when it comes to quote unquote light skin melanated individuals, you gonna look, where I'm from, Duval County, you gonna be red, or you just gonna be light skinned. So red would be somebody like Jasmine Guy. Jasmine Guy would be considered a red bone from where I'm from. Somebody light skinned, Tisha Campbell. Tisha Campbell would just be light skinned. She might be considered red to some people. But red usually also was associated with the hair, like having a very wavy, almost dare we say Indian type, not white, but not necessarily all the way coarse either. You had like the wave, the coveted wave, where you can just wet the brush and go. I used to do that with my own hair. Just wet the brush and go. But yeah, some people pass for that. And this movie, both of them at that time were. Now, there are probably going to be some spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen this movie and you don't want to know what happens in this movie, this is where, regretfully, you would leave. However, I totally invite and encourage you to stay and listen to the totality of this episode, because it made me consider things outside of just race. Although I know that here in the United States, race is a very obvious issue. I think it's instigated in the media. I think that things are presented to us in a racial nature sometimes that should not be presented to us in a racial nature. And I think that is done to invoke emotion. So, although, as I said, I do see that race is a definite issue, not it within itself being an issue, but just how race is dealt with in this country. The fact that race is like the first thing that people think of a lot of times in this country. It's a problem to me. I think that race is important, but I don't think that it should necessarily determine how you handle or treat an individual. I think that that person should be treated on their own merit and pattern of behavior, as well as allowing compassion and space for that person just being a person and being able to understand people and being a person yourself, and being able to identify with people and kind of see where they're coming from with some of the things that they do and some of the ways and perspectives that people have. So, not to digress, with my thought being that way, I thought on things past race, although we will explore race today as well as some other things. So in this movie, it starts off and Tessa is in this restaurant and she's passing. She's from Harlem and she happens to be, I think they were in Brooklyn, and she's sitting there and I think she might have a drink. I don't remember having any food, and she looks across the room and happens to catch the eye of a lady that's basically already looking at her. And this lady is looking at her with a slight excitement in her face, but considering that Tessa is passing, Tessa is trying to keep a low profile as to not to bring any attention to herself and possibly expose herself as being a melanated individual. This woman then comes up to her, and in coming up to her, she asks her if she looks familiar, and fast forward, they end up being childhood friends. And this woman, Claire, is passing as Caucasian, but not like Rainey is. Rainey is married to a melanated man. They have children, and he's a doctor. They live a pretty decent life for quote unquote Negroes of their time. And this movie setting is like 1920s. However, Rainey's friend Claire has went full-fledged. She's not just passing to be able to sit in the whites only restaurant they just so haphazardly meet in. She's also passed her life as white and is married to a prestigious white man and also has children with this man. So she completely left their life in Harlem. Her father passed as a drunk and left her to her two Caucasian aunts who raised her, amongst, of course, other Caucasian individuals who did not know that she was of melanated descent. So she's passing her life in this way. And she's very excited to see her friend because she later on says she just misses melanated company She misses being around her own people. She misses their laughter. She just misses everything about them. And in looking at information just about passing and things of that nature, my own experience with passing, the first experience I would have would be Imitation of Life. Now, this movie is like, oh man, Imitation of Life is a freaking classic. Like, Imitation of Life has been remade. I've seen both versions. I just really liked that movie. I can't say that when I first saw the movie, I fully understood like why the little girl would want to be white. Like, I understood it on a surface level, but being an adult now, I can understand it, although I do not agree with it. I've heard people that I know say, man, yeah, I want to be white. I personally cannot say that in good conscience. I can understand why they would say it because of the advantages that a Caucasian person has where we live. And honestly, just the overall world, even though racism isn't, I don't think a dominant thing. It happens around the world, but I don't think it's as heavy as here. If you listen to the episode that Mr. J. Rich so graciously joined us in, I feel like, yes, it's all over everywhere, but the palm of it is here in the United States. And I'm not a well-traveled person. I don't watch a whole lot of television. I do watch a lot of documentaries and things of that nature. And things that I have seen doesn't show me that it seems to be as hard for melanated people in other parts of the world. That movie starred, I think it was the first rendition of Imitation of Life, Frederica Washington. Now, Frederica Washington was a green-eyed, fair-skinned, melanated woman. And although looking at her, you would think she was Caucasian. Like, looking at her, I'm looking at her now, and the more you look at it, like, there's a certain hue that melanated skin has. Now, I'll say this, melanin dominant skin, because everyone does have some level of melanation to their skin, but it's not dominant to the point that you get the lovely rays of chocolate that you get on melanin dominant people, particularly here in the United States, quote unquote, black people, and just around the world. We know that there are other melanated individuals, like you have, would that be West Indian people? No, I do not say this as an offense, but I want to invoke a visual, quote unquote, red dye Indians. I've heard be identified that way. I'm not sure if that's a slur. I don't mean it in that way when I say it. I only mean it to invoke the thought of how those individuals look. Ethiopians. I've seen some Australians. These people are still considered quote unquote black people, but we just have such a diversity in our people. When you come and you look at Caucasians, and none of this, let me throw this disclaimer, none of this do I say because I hate these individuals or because I feel some kind of way about these individuals. This is just how I see life. I just say it in appreciation for who I am as a melanin dominant individual. I have definitely had the melanated experience. I can't say that I've experienced like anyone calling me nigger or anything to that effect, but as far as the systemic effect of it, I have definitely felt that. I have definitely experienced in my life the adverse effect of that. So I can understand a person hating that part of it. However, me personally, I am very thankful to be born into a people with such a diverse history, and with such a strength about themselves. I am not mad at any nationality that is willing to say that about their nationality. I don't necessarily consider that to be, well, the definitions of racist, what we got. As an adjective, it's characterized by or showing prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racist or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. As a noun, it's a person who is prejudiced against or antagonistic toward people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Now, I remember that definition being different. They could have changed it. They do that. Let's look at prejudice, though. Prejudice is preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience. That's as a noun. A dislike, a hostility, or an unjust behavior deriving from unfounded opinions. In law, it's harm or injury that results or may result from one action or judgment. So definitely not the definition that we are looking for, 1 and 2, or 1 and 1A, however, whatever. That would fit what we're looking at. Now, from my memory, I remember racist being thinking that your nationality is superior of all other nationalities. Now, if you believe that, I'm not mad at you, okay? Because I believe that melanin dominant individuals is where it's at. I believe that if we get our bearings and we for real, like get our head about ourselves and come together, we could blow all these other nationalities out of the water. And I think that that is why we are so oppressed, why we are so targeted. Yeah, I think that's the motive for everything that we go through. Other nationalities know it as well. And when I say blow other nationalities out of water, I don't say it like we're at any type of war with one another. I say it from the perspective of industry. Just period. Just representing yourself and what your people have to offer. There was a Broadway singer and actress by the name of Carol Channing. And Carol Channing, looking at her, you would think that she was of Caucasian descent. However, her grandmother was melanin dominant. She didn't reveal this to anyone until she released a book. She was like 81. And in the book, she basically talks about how she wasn't ever ashamed of being quote unquote black. And that she actually believed and appreciated her black heritage because she felt like it made her the great performer that she was, especially since there was a stereotype that melanated individuals were just natural entertainers. We just naturally have a talent for singing and dancing. I believe we just naturally have a talent for a lot of things. I remember watching a documentary about bodybuilding, and I cannot remember the guy's name. Cuban bodybuilder. His name was Sergio Oliva, if that's how you pronounce his name. But Arnold Schwarzenegger and them, they felt like he didn't have to do what they had to do. This is a melanin dominant man, even though he was Cuban. Like, he didn't have to take steroids. He didn't have to do none of that. His body just caught on to working out. I just believe that when it comes to gene pool, we where it's at. That's what I believe. And there's I can't say it. I'll say this. I just thought about this, right? So I was gonna say I would never want to be white. There was a time in my life where that wasn't true. And I think it's just because of what was put in my face. Because after a while that I got away from. But I used to want to be Vanna White. I used to think that, I think it was hair. The Caucasian hair, for whatever reason. I guess I just thought that's where it was at. Of course, I don't think that now, but that's just what was presented to me as a child as beauty. And I remember even in 6th grade having a girl say something to the effect of, how does your hair do that? Like, how does it just not move? And I dealt with I dealt with racial anger in elementary school. I think I got that the head of it out anyway. I still deal with it now, but more mature, managed way. But as a child, it was like I didn't care. Anybody could get it. If I felt like you were trying to be white, I would So passing is never anything that I can say I thought about to a degree of I want to be white. Like I want to walk around and people think that I'm white. Even with the hair thing, I still have just appreciated. I love my skin. I just love being quote unquote black. But for some people, the economic pressure of it, the social pressure of it, especially in those times, the setting of the movie again was in the 1920s. Like, who wants to do that? Now, with this movie, in a sense, it was a horror film because once she sees her friend in this restaurant, and Claire reveals to Rainey that her husband does not know that she is actually a melanin dominant woman, she suggests, hey, Claire's like, hey, come upstairs to my suite, like that way we can talk freely or whatever. And when they get upstairs, she's just discussing how basically what happened with her life. Her father died, her aunt got her, she ends up meeting this guy, they end up getting married, having children, so on and so forth. But he doesn't know that she's melanated, and he just so happens to come in the room as they're talking. He doesn't hear them, but he brings up a joke that they have between themselves, and he says, my wife, when I met her, she was like really white, basically saying she was so pale, but as time progressed, she just gets darker and darker. He had a nickname for her, and her nickname was Nig because of that, short for nigger, of course. Her nickname was Nig because he said although he didn't know that she was indeed quote unquote black, he had that joke about her. And Rainey, Tessa Thompson's character, is sitting there and she is laughing, like she's really, really laughing, and he's kind of disturbed a little bit by the intensity of her laugh. And she's just like, that's a good one. But in all of that, you can see just how nervous she is, because imagine being pulled into that situation. In that time, that was basically like a suicide mission, because I mean, not only have I married you, but I have children. You basically made like a complete fool out of me. I guess the comparison in today's world would be the whole transgender thing that we have now. That's today's form of passing, or one of today's forms of passing, where you transform yourself to be a person that you actually are not, and you deceive the people around you for your own comfort. I think a part of it is very selfish. A large part of it is very selfish. It takes away a person's right to choose. I think I gathered that concept of just giving a person a right to choose. Someone was talking about cheating, and there are actually people in the world that don't care about basically open relationship. They're cool with if you want to chill with somebody else, to do something with somebody else. They just want to know about it. So I remember seeing something about infidelity, and the person was like, you didn't give me the right to choose. So in passing, that deception doesn't give a person a right to choose. Because as I looked at the movie, fast forward, eventually it does end up ending pretty bad. Claire continues to indulge in her melanated life, her old life, kind of getting carried away with it a bit. And just so happened that Rainey ends up meeting her husband, not her own husband, but Claire's husband. She just so happens to see him one day while she's out and she's with someone that's obviously melanated. So he then puts together that, oh wow, you're a nigger, and eventually comes looking for his wife, who ends up dying in the end. I won't say how, but she ends up dying. That way I haven't spoiled the whole movie, but she does end up dying. And looking at his reaction to it, it's of course a written script, but looking at the way what the actor provoked for me, and the actor was that played the role, his name is Alexander Skarsgård, I think I pronounced his last name correctly. He was like one of my favorite actors back in the day. I was like a really big True Blood fan, and he played Eric. And Eric, yeah, I really liked him as that character. He looked really devastated. Because think about it. I really loved this woman. I thought she was white. I had children with her. But now I find out that she's black. But really, what does that change other than she's black? I still love this woman. I still had children with this woman. I still love my children. So what did that really change? Now, I spoke of Miss, as they would call her, Freddie Washington. She was actually on the contrary when it came to passing. What's interesting to me about her is, although she could have easily passed, and was said that she actually said that at the beginning of her career, it was suggested that she passed as like a French woman or something to that effect. She actually would not do that. She was very openly so-called black, openly melanated. She was also a singer and performed with Duke Ellington and groups of that nature. But she often played roles of a woman that passed. As I said, Imitation of Life. That movie to me was pretty intense. Both of them, just thinking about running away from who you are, and something that I heard listening to, I can't remember whose story it was I was listening to, but what the person was saying was, we often think about when a melanated individual passes as Caucasian, we often think about the benefits of it to that person. We think about that person, they do it to gain status. They do it to gain some sense of safety about themselves, to be able to access privileges that they would not be able to access as themselves, to be able to gain access to opportunities that they would not be able to access and gain as their full selves, sharing what their nationalities were in that time. And in that movie, the girl was very, very resentful of being melanated from a very young age. And on that movie, I don't ever recall either rendition of it giving an account of how the girl was born or her father or anything. Now that I'm saying that, something like really fuzzy comes in my mind, maybe that the mother and one of them says that the dad was just like really, really fair skinned. But the little girl really, really resented being quote unquote black. And it was like the moment that she got an opportunity to run away from it, she did. But at the same token, she ends up breaking her mother's heart. And that's what the person spoke of. She spoke of what you leave behind. In that story, she spoke of a lady that was from, I believe, the Carolinas, one of the Carolinas. And she herself was very fair-skinned. And her mother suggested to her, hey, you could pass for white. And if you want a good life for yourself, you probably should do that. And so she did. She packed up her entire life. She moved to California. She lived her life as a white woman, so much to the point that when her father became ill, her mother called her like, "Hey, your father's about to die. You might want to come see him." And she's like, "Hey, that's not my life. I'm white now. Like, I can't be going back to see him." And she never went to see her father. She never went to his funeral. She never talked to her family again. She left that life behind. And like, what does happen to those people? How does that feel, to be left behind, to be basically disowned, for the benefit of your daughter, your child, pretending to be someone that they aren't? Like I said, in today's society, we could look at transgender individuals. Basically, you're trying to cover your footsteps, cover who you actually are, because access to any of these people reveals that you are living in a deceitful vanity of who you would like to be and not who you actually are. Now, although we have very many accounts of melanated individuals passing as Caucasian individuals, which when I look at some of these people, I'm like, how could y'all not tell that these were melanated folks? Because some of these people, yeah, I saw one singer, I can't think of her name. They actually called her the blonde bombshell. This is not Marilyn Monroe. I think this is like well before Marilyn Monroe. But she was very, very melanated. I think her name was Ina or Ida or something. So yeah, with her, I was like, okay, yeah, you definitely look Caucasian. But with our light-skinned individuals, there's still a undertone that they have. There's still like a beauty in their skin that just shines, and I would like to say I can see it, but I'm sure I've missed a few here and there. But there were also Caucasian individuals that passed as melanated individuals. Now, for me, I'm not 100% sure of what the quote-unquote benefit of that was. I have my ideas based on the two people that we will be talking about today. Both of those people had very different motives. Actually, we might talk about three people, because the person that talk about off top, Miss Rachel Dozier. I think I pronounced her last name correctly, hopefully. She made headlines a few years ago because she was like the head of the NAACP and had all types of quote unquote black accolades, and come to find out she was like a whole 100% white girl. And it was very interesting to me to see people react to that. A lot of people were upset, like, oh, how's she gonna be trying to act like she black, such and such, and that's just the ultimate form of white privilege, when you can decide that you just want to be another nationality. I think that everybody has their rights, their perspective, and their opinion. I may not understand it enough to be upset to that degree. I really wasn't upset at all. I kind of took it as a compliment that you looked at the heritage of your own people and you disliked it so much that you decided out of everybody in the world that you wanted to be me. And I don't necessarily see where she took anything away from quote unquote blacks. I think it could also, for some people, it might ring a bell toward the quote unquote Jews and the identity theft of that. But although by principle it's the same situation, no, because these people turned around, they took our stuff and basically did everything they could to keep us out of our space, and still are doing everything they can to keep us out of our space. Whereas she like idolized us, and she went and joined organizations that were supposed to be for the betterment of us and fought for us and did all types of stuff, because she just did not like whatever she had going on in her home with her own people. So I didn't necessarily take that as an offense. But also, previous to her, there was a man named James Todd. And James Todd met Miss Ada Copeland in the 1800s. And he fell in love with his melanated lady, and they have 4 children. And when he met her, that's how he introduced himself. He said his name was James Todd, and that he was a Pullman porter. And from his occupation, everyone assumed that he was quote unquote black. He, in actuality, was Clarence King. And Mr. Clarence King was a renowned scientist and public speaker who traveled all over the world for his profession. Very gifted, well-educated white man who would, in his spare time, hang out in predominantly black areas. His own family he had did not raise him to be quote unquote racist. In fact, there's record of within his family home there was quote unquote black help, but he was raised to treat them as people, and was even reprimanded and scolding for labeling them as those people. His grandfather was like, yeah, we don't do that around here. You gonna treat them like people because they are people. So he was not a person that was raised in racism, and he appreciated the melanated. You feel me? So he was from Rhode Island. He used to like to hang out in New York. He met Miss Copeland, fell in love, as they would say, and they had children. All to her blind of her husband was actually a very well off white guy. Now, even though he was very well off, he still fought debt because his double life cost him. His white colleagues thought that when he was not with them, that he was in the presence of his mother, helping his mother with, I believe she had some other children or something to that effect. But basically, he put his mother up in a house, and then of course he had his own wife and family to tend to. People close to him said that he never talked about his family, so the white people assumed that he was with his mother. His black family assumed that since he was a Pullman porter, he just had to do a lot of traveling on trains to be able to help with that. If you don't know what a Pullman porter is, don't feel bad. I didn't either. A Pullman porter is basically just like a handman on a sleeper train. So, like in movies, the one that they cast to basically, I can't remember what movie it was. It was an older movie. It was Denzel Washington. Someone was fighting. I cannot remember. If you remember, go ahead and put it out there. But basically just making sure the white folks stay happy on their train. That's what a Pullman porter was. So when he introduced himself as that, it was just automatically assumed that he was of a melanin dominant lineage, and he really wasn't. Now she didn't find this out until her husband was about to pass, and all the traveling, it took a toll on his health. He was told to slow down on traveling. He didn't. And before he passed, he told his wife, hey, you know what? The jig is up. I'm about to die. Guess what? I'm really a white guy. All of his children at the time of their birth were denoted as colored individuals, but after his passing, his 2 boys went into the military, where they were denoted as quote unquote colored. His 2 daughters both were denoted as Caucasian, and they also married Caucasian men, where they attested for one another, hey, my sister is white. Hey, my sister is white. So they went on to pass as Caucasians, but further on in time, there's record of all 4 of them identifying as mulatto. Now, the motive, I think, for Clarence was, I'm gonna say, it was just falling in love with somebody, because he wasn't raised in racism. He wasn't raised to I don't know that he would, like, racial, be able to look back at his people and be like, oh, y'all mistreated black people. I hate y'all. I want to be anything other than y'all. I don't think he was doing that necessarily to escape who he was personally, like his personal lineage. I think that that's something he lied about because he really loved this woman, kind of like the Lovings. I can't remember that couple because that was an impromptu thought. I can't remember where they were from, but it was a white guy and a black woman. They were in love. It was illegal for interracial marriage at that time, and they did it anyway. They went to a state where it wasn't illegal and went and got married, and their lives were pretty chaotic because of that. So maybe Clarence just did not want to go through that. Maybe he didn't want his family to have to deal with that, and he just lied and said that he was white. Now, how could this white guy be walking around, or he lied and said he was black? How could this white guy be walking around talking about, hey, I'm actually not a white guy, I'm actually black? Well, during that time, after slavery was abolished and it got to a point where there weren't actually the traditional form of plantation slaves, there was a concern about how slaves would be controlled and managed and how they would be identified. And the law became, if you had an eighth of black in you, you were considered black. So quite easy for anybody to kind of jump on either side of the race card there, because we are all a mixed multitude. I think that there are very few of us walking this world that can of truth say you are of one pure lineage. I was thinking about it earlier today about being biracial. Everyone, I believe, is multiracial, especially if you're in the United States. This is a whole melting pot of whatever. There was, however, another guy, and this man's name was John Howard Griffin. And John Howard Griffin had a book called Black Like Me. And in Black Like Me, he himself was raised to be racist. But after a while, he started to think to himself, because he traveled. He was in the military. If I'm not mistaken, one of the world wars, and he was responsible for smuggling Jewish children into safety, to make sure that they were able to live during that time. And when he went over to help, he noticed that black people were eating with Caucasian people, and that pissed him off. And when it pissed him off, something triggered, like, why am I pissed? Like, why is this bothering me? And he realized that race was not something that was as much of a governing factor in other places as it is in the United States. So, as I said, he helped with smuggling Caucasian, or, well, still Caucasian, Jewish kids to safety for their life or what have you. He ended up making the right-wrong connect, and that landed him on a German kill list. So he escaped and came back to the United States. And when he came back to the United States, he decided that he wanted to basically investigate and live as a melanin-dominant individual in the South, of all places. So in order to do this, he took medication, and he spent an extended amount of time under sun lamps, and he did a pretty good job of getting a pretty good tan about himself. And he went to areas that he was familiar with. Some people actually recognized him. They didn't necessarily recognize him like just by seeing him. There were different traits about him. Like, for instance, one record talks about him going to a place where he would usually get his shoes shined, and the shoe shiner recognized him by his shoes, and he exposed himself to him as far as who he was. Pause. Expose himself. But this motive was just to get an understanding of a lot of Caucasians, maybe like what are quote unquote black people, what are y'all whining about? Like, what's the big deal? There are melanin dominant individuals that don't believe themselves that there's a discrimination. They believe that every access and affordability that a Caucasian has, we as melanin dominant quote unquote black people have that same access. I believe it to a certain degree. I believe we have the access to it, but is it made readily available to us? No. So in a sense, therefore, we do not have the access. It's like for us, it's one of those situations. I think it's like the Masons or even some fraternities. It's like to be one, you got to know one type situation. That's how resources are for quote unquote melanated individuals. I not too long ago helped my nephew do a project on food deserts, and that was something that came up about food deserts. It was like for Caucasians that live in food deserts, there are farmers markets and all types of resources that are readily available to them that are put in their face, whereas when melanated individuals or melanin dominant individuals live in food deserts, there's like you got to do a lot of digging to be able to find the resources to get a healthy meal or a meal that's going to be conducive to your health. So for them, they got neon signs. For us, it's like, hey, go holler at the dude on the corner in the red jacket, park on the corner and flash the lights 3 times. Like, we got to go through all types of stuff to be able to get certain resources. So he just wanted to see if what all the hoorah was about in the black community, why y'all whining, and he got to see it firsthand. In doing that, he awkwardly became the white spokesperson of melanated people. He was the one quote unquote white person to be able to say, hey, I know from experience that we act like this, not because of a situation like I saw my mom and my daddy do it or the people around me do it. Like, I was actually mistreated, mishandled as a quote unquote black man because I disguised myself to see what that life is like. And it's not fair how you treat these people. These people are not treated as people. And I myself once thought this way, but realized that it made absolutely no sense. Let me go see how these people live, who these people are. And just as most people that do come outside of or are granted a mind to be like, hey, it's quote unquote racism stuff don't make sense. Why are we mistreating and discriminating against black people? Why do we feel this way about black people? Let me go find some stuff on myself. You find that we are like the most nurturing, gentle, forgiving, caring, like all of those adjectives people that you can find. Of course, all people are like that. I believe. I don't think that that's exclusive to a nationality as far as just caring about your fellow person. But just like individual people have dominant traits and ways about themselves, I think that overall different nationalities have dominant traits and characteristics about themselves. And I think that my people are just freaking awesome. We take a lot. We forgive a lot. We are resilient people. That's why I can't think of anybody else in the world, nationality-wise, that I would want to be. There are nationalities that I could think of that I'm sure couldn't take a fraction of what melanated individuals have taken, whether it be United States melanin dominant individuals, whether it be straight like right there in African melanin dominant individuals, just the stuff around the world that we are subject to. I don't see any other nationality like being able to absorb that and thrive as we do. So that's why I could never see myself being like, yeah, I want to be white, or yeah, I want to be whatever other nationality there is that people want to be. Our people take to quote unquote Asian nationality a lot too, that whole karate thing, but I love being black, and that's just that, quote unquote black or what have you. Now, I did say that in watching this movie and considering this whole situation, that it made me consider other ways that people pass. And yes, I did briefly touch on the transgender situation. Individuals passing for their own contentment, pretending to be people that they aren't. But let's take it a step further, right? How about just a person, period? A lot of people, even as children, starting as children, peer pressure and just wanting to fit in. So you pass by presenting different personality traits that you genuinely just do not have. So let's say, I'll say a peer pressure of drinking beer, maybe. This is just random. And you drink beer, you think beer is absolutely disgusting, but whomever it is you're trying to model yourself after, or whomever it is that is cool, or whatever your objective is at that moment, it may not be a can of beer, it could be something else. You just feel like you have to do that in order to be able to achieve whatever it is. So although passing as far as race and appearance, I'll say race, as far as race, are not as dominant now as they have been in times past. I think blacks do pass today. They pass financially. We all know on resumes that if your name looks a little ethnic, then your resume will probably get passed up. So I know individuals that do not put their names on resumes. They put their initials on resumes. There are famous people that don't use their names. They use their initials because of the ethnic nature, I guess I can say, of their name. So I look at that as a low level form of passing. There are different things that we do to fit in and to get by that may not necessarily be looked at as big as passing for your nationality, but in a sense, to me, kind of are. And I considered those things in watching this movie. As I said, Claire did end up dying in the movie. And for some individuals in that movie, it seems to have been a relief. Like I said, even though I don't know what the genre of the movie would have been considered. I'm looking at it. It says it was considered a romantic drama. Very interesting. Not sure that I saw any romance in there at all. It's based off of a book by a lady named Nella Larson. I may or may not go grab that book. But I will say that I did enjoy the movie. I would have said it was a horror film, though. I really would have said it was a horror film. The lady that played Claire was nominated for a Golden Globe, a BAFTA, and a Screen Actors Guild Award. It's saying she's nominated, so I'm going to believe that she did not win. But I think that the movie was well played out. I really, really, really love the fact that they filmed this movie in black and white because it made it very raw. And yeah, just made me consider all the things that we pass as, whether it be white, whether it be black, whether it be male, whether it be female, whether it be introvert, whether it be extrovert, whether it be whatever personality, image, presentation of yourself. Are you passing? As I said, for me, it's not something that I consider because I am so melanated, I guess you can say. But when you look at it in that way, it definitely gives you something to consider. And now it's time for Q'dash Zamar. Today we'll be reviewing Bad Mind by B Breezy featuring C.A.M. Faking, hating, perpetrating, a hob for y'all fame, deviant, violating, image of shame, digging a hole, yet piling pain, dwelling upon lust I can't abstain, and got the nerve to still complain, watching my life disintegrate. Back in college, Thursday nights, speaking tongues, wasting energy. When we finish, can I skip the line to get in VIP? Leverett made me a deacon. Hey, the people really feeling me. But please don't check my phone or view my laptop history. Vices on discreet, yet I'm yearning to be honest. Let the pastor know, but he insinuate I'm still spotless. Snared by the web, captivated by a holler, twisted up, my motives separated from the folly. Like, leave me alone, sinner. Find you something more constructive. Like flipping off a building. Land on your head if you lucky. Y'all put me in a position like a fast break I'm running. Raw out through the alley, and it's up for me to dunk it. I thought I couldn't be saved. I thought I wouldn't see brighter days. I thought for me it would be too late, but look at me right now. I thought Yahuwah had let me go. I thought I didn't have a home. I thought that all hope was gone, but look at me right now. I am your Akuth, Wisdom Simone. Hadu for your listening ear, and this has been my Candid Wisdom.
Cheetah Buddha.
Making hate, perpetrate, now hop in your fame. Deviate, violate, image of a shame. Digging a hole, you probably pay. Dwell up on lust, I can't abstain. Ain't got the nerve to still complain. Watching my life disintegrate. Back in college, Thursday night, speaking tone, wasting energy. When we finish, can I skip the line? Get in VIP. Leverett made me deacon, hate them people really feeling me. But please don't check my phone to view my laptop history. Vices on the street, yet I'm yearning to be honest. Let the pastor know, but he insinuate I'm spotless. Snare by the way up, captivated by a holler. Twisted up my motor, separated from the folly. Like leave me alone, send up on your something more constructive. Like flipping off a building, land on your head if you're lucky. Y'all put me in position like a fast break on running. Right out through the alley, and it's all for me to dunk it.
I thought that I could be saved. I thought I would see brighter days. I thought for me it would be too late, but look at me right now. I thought you had let me go. I thought I didn't have a home. I thought that all hope was gone, but look at me right now. Oh, this track is for the strong, not the weak. Call me Shy Breeze, I'm dropping summers on beats. Minor setback, but what major comeback. He say if I live Q'dash Zamar, always he'll forget that. What of the light? I accept that deal. Get it right for yourself, see how it feels. I made it to tomorrow, so sufficient is today. When it comes to my navage, I ain't got no room to play. You may see me crying, but my Hoosier brings me joy. I'm a colder soldier for you who shot been deployed. Come feel with gladness and you make that joyful noise. I'ma make a joyful noise. Watch me make a joyful noise. You gon' be tried, don't come thinking that is easy. No, this my testimony, I can only speak for breeze. For me, it's hope for the living if you just get it right. And I built my confidence with my misbegotten fight. But I thought that I could be saved. I thought I would see brighter days. I thought for me it would be too late, but look at me right now. I thought you had let me go. I thought I didn't have a home. I thought that all hope was gone, but look at me right now.